So with this video, I just want to review a patch that I'm looking at. I thought I was starting to write something down in the comments, and I thought, you know what, it's probably just going to be easier if I actually just work through it because it's more like usability related, and sometimes I think talking it makes that kind of hard. So this is kind of like this gradient widgets improvement, trying to make it better for this to work. And I tried it out. Thank you so much for this patch. I think overall it looks pretty good. I saw some funky things with it. Some things might not even be your fault. They might just be how the gradient editor works. I honestly don't really use it a ton, so some of this might just be funky stuff that needs to be fixed. I'll just do it from adding a fill layer. So I know one of the things that you fixed in it that's good is like this finally kind of fits now. I think currently in master, I think this is kind of getting compressed a little bit, so that looks better. One thing I couldn't figure out how to do, so like you can, if you want to add a stop, you can just click in here and it adds one. But I cannot figure out how to delete a stop. Like I click it, I click delete, delete doesn't do it. I thought right click used to do it, and then you could like have an option to delete it there, but like I cannot figure out for the life of me how to delete one of those. So something to maybe do, probably maybe not related to what you're doing, but that probably needs to be addressed. Another thing I noticed is more with the layout, and I see that this gradient here is expanding, I guess just to fill all of the space. Like for example, if I do that, it looks like this, which we probably don't need to do. Usually with a lot of these areas, we have these things called spacers, like a vertical spacer that'll just push all of this up. Like this doesn't probably need to be more than like maybe about half the size as it currently is. Like it could probably be about half the size like that, and like that would probably be fine. And usually to do that, like you can look at some other areas like the position. Like this kind of works like how most of our other areas are. So there's a spacer object in here, which is a QML thing, and that just pushes all of this stuff up. So I'd probably just add one of those to this thing, just so it doesn't look a little funky in situations like this. Another thing I noticed, I think you added this, is that you have these like text things right here. And it's kind of a cool idea. I like it. The only thing that's kind of weird with it gets to be whenever it's like sometimes the background. I felt like it's hard to read sometimes. Like when it's selected, it kind of turns gray. But I feel like the readability of it can be kind of hard depending on what's behind it. So I guess one idea with what we do in some areas is we actually render the text twice. We render it once with something like white or black, and then we render it again with the opposite color, kind of like a drop shadow. So I think that could help a little bit with the colors and making things like this BG a little bit easier to read. One thing I noticed is we're starting to use these ... menus, which I like, but I do think that we need to like probably have a little more consistency and at least think about where we do these. Like right now, like this kind of just throws up some options, which are cool. But these options also exist, or like we have other areas that have options like this that are not using a ... Like for example, we have like this thing here, which is like a configure thing. And this also shows some options. But then we also have it here. This actually brings up a pop-up, like a dialogue. So like maybe this makes sense for this, bringing this up. But this might be a more thing we need to look at in general. Because we also have other areas like our presets that we kind of have it here. But it kind of is the same thing. It's really just a drop down. So I mean, maybe we need to go through and actually just update all of these to be ... or something to be a little more consistent, maybe to separate out the functionality a little bit better. So let me bring back up fill layer. And the last thing that kind of like was kind of confusing for me was a lot of these options. Like I would be pressing a lot of these options like this, and at first I'm like, these are not working. Like all of these options I'm pressing are not having any effect at all. So, I mean, a lot of people are gonna just think it's broken, and they're gonna probably stop using it. But after I looked at it a little more, what it really means is all of these options are really not for this, but they're really for this preset chooser thing. So if I open up this, then if you play with these options, it actually modifies it. So usually with things like this, what I like to do is like I usually put options where they actually change things. So I feel like almost all of these options here really need to be like in this editor. Either if we put like another dot 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 thing here, like maybe right to the right of this tags filter and everything, or just somewhere in this thing that's so you never run into that situation where changing all of these options doesn't have any visual feedback. So yeah, I'd probably separate it. I mean, you could probably keep this show compact grid thing that turns off and on, which is fine, but I think all of the other options that kind of modify it, this thing probably needs to be in its own separate options menu. So that would be my suggestion. But yeah, other than that, those are, I mean, at least the first pass of it, those are kind of the main things that I noticed. And yeah, again, I thought this video maybe would help a little bit more instead of me just typing stuff out. So hopefully this helps with me, and let me know if you have any feedback or questions with it.